Okay, so I'm doing an update as part of the home video series for our Microgreens production, and I've already gone over infrastructure in great detail, but today what I want to do is do an updated version of our production area or our production shelf. And the reason being is when I did my original setup, I kind of found a shelf that would do, but it wasn't the ideal, and over time it started to show that. It basically didn't have the proper dimensions and it actually wasn't strong enough. And so what I found is the shelf itself was shifting. So in my commercial production courses, I talk a lot about what I call these wire baker shelves. And they're very, very common and they're very good quality. They're very easy to find. And so I've gone and upgraded my production system here to the baker shelves just because the previous shelving setup just wasn't doing it anymore. So there's a reason I really like these. So number one is they're very strong. These things can hold, several 100 pounds each. So because I do have the weighted blocks on here, I want it to be strong in that regard. They really last. Like this shelf will last me a lifetime. So the nice thing about it as well is if I stop using it for this, I can use it for something else. If I don't need it, I can take it apart and collapse it down into a smaller space very easily. Aesthetically, it's very simple. I find it fits into most kitchens very well. And it's really adaptable. So these shelves I have are 21 inches deep by 30 inches wide, which fits my space perfectly. And you can buy them in all sorts of dimensions, 24 by 30, 24 by 36. So there's a lot of options there. So it's really easy to find something that'll fit your space perfectly. Post height as well. Now the posts are pretty easy to cut with a grinder, but I got posts that were 63 inches high and they fit perfectly into here. So lots of options. I really like them. This whole setup cost about $155 Canadian. So it's a little more expensive than the about $40 I spent before, but once again, much more functional. So I'm going to just talk about how I've done the setup here and just a few things I've added since the original post. So the setup is the same. I've got my two lights, my two tray production system here. One thing I added was some heat mats. So the heat mats basically just do a little bit of a better job at germination and growth. So they just move things along a little quicker, keep things more consistent. As before, so everything plugs into a power bar, which I can switch on and off, and then also has a timer here. So I have it basically on a 13-hour on, 11-hour off cycle. So you don't need 16, 18, 20 hours of light. You only need about 12 or 13. And I have my system placed beside a window, so it's getting natural light as well. So right now, my current tray is just in the germination phase. I don't need the lights on. I just have them here for demonstration. So the heating pad will come on and off at the same time as the timer. So when I'm finished this, I'll actually unplug the lights and just have the heating pad going. So I've got my heating pad going during the day and off during the night, basically, following the light cycle. So that's a big upgrade I've made. Once again, I've got a little bit of storage space here for my watering trays because I like to underwater. Once again, I'm just using a boot tray for that, like we talked about. And yeah, basically infrastructure-wise, it hasn't changed too much. So a couple things I have changed. One is in my original video, I had my production system up here, and what I've done is I've moved it down. And I've done that for a couple of reasons. One is it makes this light a little less intrusive. Up top, it kind of goes all over the kitchen and into the next room, and it just got to be a little too much. So being down here kind of keeps it a little more subtle. Now to further, if I'm just finding I don't want to look at this light, I've actually just got a cover in here I can put down. And so this is something I can really block the light out with. I just get a little bit coming out on the side here, which isn't a big deal. So I like this because sometimes in the morning, if I'm in here making coffee or something, I just don't want the light intensity. It gives me that option. So another reason I've moved it down is it makes better use of this space. So this is stuff up here that I use all the time. And I talked about this in the original is I really want to integrate this into my kitchen. You might want to have like a big show-off microgreen system, and that's fine, and you can do that. What I'm trying to do is make it a little more subtle and use the shelving space. So I've got some plants up here, the bowls and things that I use quite a bit, and then I've got some storage space below here actually, where I've got like my Instant Pot and a few extra things that I like to use for cooking. My seeds are still down below. They actually just rest on the floor in these totes like before. So the first shelf starts just above them. So I don't even have a ground shelf. Those just go right onto the ground. So I've really, I've changed the shelving unit. I've shifted things down, and I've put a little bit of a cover on there. So these are just basically 3 things I've done to really upgrade my system. So you can see it really simplifies things, and it really ups the quality. So in general, so I've updated my infrastructure spreadsheet. Right now I've spent about $950 for this system. So people talk about getting systems set up really cheap. It seems like a lot of money, but you can do this in stages, and this includes everything. So I've bought custom light fixtures and bulbs, and I had to do some wiring. It includes the heat mats, and it also includes like my first batch of seeds and some soil and things. So you can keep costs down and do this in stages. Some of the stuff you might already have, and you might have a shelving unit that works already, so you don't need to spend that extra 150 bucks. But having a good unit does go a long way. So I do really, recommend getting a shelf that's going to work really well. So yeah, these are our baker shelves, 21 by 30. You can think about that. One thing I didn't add is these are the epoxy coated ones. So you can find these in epoxy coated and just stainless steel. Now, I'm a very big advocate of the epoxy coated shelving. One reason is over time, your stainless steel shelves will start to rust. As you start rubbing them a lot, the stainless steel, the coating on top of them rubs off and they will start to rust. These epoxy shelves are super durable and they last forever. And this epoxy is really, really hard to chip off. So in the Food Peddler system, where we've been using those shelves for almost 7 years now, there's only a few spots where some of the epoxy is chipped off. And those are in commercial production, hundreds of trays twice a week. So in a home setting, this is going to go a long way to lasting a long time. And once again, it's very adaptable. If you don't use this system for long, or you want to switch things up, this is a great storage shelf, can be used indoors or outdoors, so it has a lot of use. And I really like to use things that have multiple uses and they're not too customized. That way, when if I change my system or I decide I don't want to do this anymore, this has another use or it has some resale value. It's not so customized that it has to be used for a microgreen system. So these are all things I'm thinking about when trying to integrate something like this into my home life. And it's something you should think about as well in terms of how to do production at home in an efficient, easy manner. And that, once again, kind of fits into what you're doing. So this already fits into my kitchen and actually just really takes up this little bit of space here. Just these 2 shelves where I've got the production and my seeds and all my prep I do outside. So that's an update on the shelving unit. I hope that gives you some good stuff to consider, and look for more videos soon.